So let's not make any bones about this shit. I got really fired up by Michael and Tony's stream, and you see all the goodwill in chat, and I'm like, I want to ride this. So I decided to do a stream. I scheduled it right before we were done. And then on a whim, I messaged a buddy to say, hey man, do you want to join my stream or something? And wouldn't you know it, he showed up. Welcome 2 Cents Toy Sal to the stream. How you doing, brother? Been a minute.
Oh, just working.
So it's really, really hopping at work tonight, huh?
Well, I mean, kind of, but not really. I have intermittent pockets of being busy and pockets of not being busy.
Sure. Yeah, this is completely informal. I don't have an agenda. I just want to talk to some folks and just kind of hang. So your intermittent pockets of busyness are perfectly okay and welcome. You can dip out and come back in as you please. Just wanted to talk to some folks because, anytime those two get together, I'm just like, oh, because then the synapses start firing, and frankly, the beer starts flowing a little bit, and how it goes. So
I experienced this, and I may be experiencing it now. I'm not sure because I'm having to do this from my phone, and until tonight, even I was under the impression that you had to have like Google Chrome and all that kind of stuff. So I'm doing it from my phone, but I experiencing a big delay. So if I randomly cut you off, it's not on purpose.
No worries. I mean, I interrupt people all the time, so maybe I'll get my just desserts, man. It's fine. Your delays in your responses are minimal at best, so I think we're okay. But we'll work it out. Like, technical problems is kind of a thing. It's not a big deal. So while I have you, and while you may or may not have time, let me just get your raw thoughts on the whole bullshit debacle of Mattel Creations pre-order shit last week. I already did a whole video on it. I'm curious what you thought about it.
Well, I mean, if Sphincter Creative is anything to go on, I got mine, so on everyone else.
Right.
No.
Yeah,
I say I got mine. I got my pre-orders in with the first window way back when.
Right.
It was
right
then even. And I feel like, because Michael has said that I have this hammer space bag full of luck when it comes to these things, but that's because you guys only hear about the stuff I do get. You don't hear about all the stuff that I miss out on, and I'm sitting there banging my head against the wall because I was 2 seconds too late or whatever. But
yeah, it's a whole thing. I just on a whim, I just copied and pasted my Evernote list of Motu Origins figures. And I put that in my Patreon to say, here's what I actually have. You don't see all of them, but here's what I actually have. And it turns out that the only release figure I'm missing is the OG Frumpy Hordak. And I was like, oh shit, I may have bought too much. But it's one of those things where I wasn't there at the beginning. It's really hard to then find things after they've been released. Retail's already a fucking nightmare. And then when they do something like this, and I think Michael had brought up a really good point when he showed that those fan-made or fan-voted Triclopses, they're already shipping. As far as I know, mine should be here, if not today, tomorrow. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If those are shipping, and the Secrets of Grayskull isn't, and the Sunmans aren't shipping, and the Horde 4-pack isn't shipping, what the hell is exactly going on? What exactly is happening? Which it leans into either they are truly aping off some of the stuff that didn't make it via boat, or they haven't made stuff yet. Something's not right. Something's definitely not right when that pre-order just was up a week ago today. Do you think this is a non-manufacturer thing? Is it just a cock-up? What is your opinion on this?
My whole thing on it, my 2 cents, if you will.
Haha, yes.
So the mini comic Triclops was voted on like a year ago or something. It's been a minute. So I'm wondering, like, no matter what way we slice this, it's not good. So I'm like, either they've had mini Triclops just sitting there waiting for PowerCon, like they've had it in hand this whole time when they could have just been like, oh, here it is, which means they made us wait for no reason, really. Unless they knew well in advance that this whole cock up with shipping and the container, not that they knew it would happen, but they knew well in advance, like, oh, our stuff's not going to make it in time. Let's hold on to these and wait until PowerCon so we have something for people. Or they're lying and they do have the stuff in hand. Like, because they said,
my other big...
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm realizing I have an echo, and I know it's my end because I'm having to do it through my phone. But hold on, let me, while I'm talking, let me see if I can adjust my, no, it's already on there. Okay, never mind.
Okay.
I have echo cancellation turned on already. They said, oh, it's in a harbor, it's waiting to pull in, and I called that out. I was like, is it? And I can't remember who. I did an impromptu live stream a couple days ago, just putting together some Legos. And if you're in the chat right now, please forgive me. I can't remember who said it, but someone told me they live adjacent to that harbor, and normally they have like one ship, and he counted like 40 are sitting there. So
it's crazy.
The stuff may be sitting there, but I think that's cutting it kind of close to
a little bit.
Like, oh, let's we'll get this stuff just in time for PowerCon. It's like, maybe you should, I'm sure, you're a former jarhead, so failing to plan is planning to fail. So.
Right. Yeah. And it's something where there's no spin I can think of on this makes sense. In as much as if they knew they were bringing Sunman to market, they knew they were bringing Triclops to market, like the PowerCon exclusive stuff, I can forgive to a certain degree because I'm fairly reasonably certain that they were just going to take the overstock of stuff that wasn't going to sell at PowerCon and offering it to the general public, which for the person at home is cool, but it's a big slap in the face of the folks that were actually at PowerCon that did not get the chance to buy this stuff. I think it's really bullshit. And they really need to go back and manufacture the amount of pre-orders of folks that had tickets and offer it to them privately, and strike the shipping costs. Right. Yeah. I think that needs to happen. You need to correct that shit.
That they knew like their stuff wasn't going to be there. They sent out that email. They're like, oh, it might not be here, and it's like, nah, motherfucker, you knew it wasn't going to be there. So my whole thing with that, why didn't they just leave open pre-orders for it? If they knew the stuff wasn't there, leave it open to pre-order for anybody. Since it's the point or the fact that it didn't make it to PowerCon on time, and PowerCon's over. It's no longer a PowerCon exclusive. You didn't have to go there to get it. Why not just open it up to pre-orders?
Yeah. And take all the money. That was my whole point. Like, you could make all of the money with this stuff. All of it. Especially when one considers that less than 3 days after that pre-order, Target, Amazon, Walmart all got massive shipments of Castle Grayskulls. That's how I got mine. After all the shit I went through with Entertainment Earth, which you well know about. You and I had a long discussion about that. I saw it on Target, and I just waited until the EE rep said, yeah, we'll give you a refund. I'm like, sweet. I just went right over to Target, ordered it, same day delivery, bring it to me right the fuck now. And they did. And to their credit, Target really stepped up. And something that they told me during the course of that transaction, and what I confirmed with several other people throughout the week, was that Target, and I can't speak for other retailers, but they were making it a point to keep Grayskull in the back. They did not want to put it on the shelf. And I think that's just Target being smart. Right. Meaning that, because the idea being that Exactly. And I think that Target recognized the fact that like they don't really have the means on their site to limit quantities per
Right.
se. So it became kind of this thing where, yeah, we'll list that it's in stock, but some jackass can't walk in off the street and just grab everything off the shelf, and then you're fucked in the 20 minutes it takes for someone to walk in and do your delivery, which I really truly appreciated. But it's really sad that a store like Target, which exclusives aside, is just trying to sell a product on the shelf. I don't think that they, as a corporation, exclusives aside, want to cater to scalpers. I don't think that that's anything that they're happy about. I think they would much better benefit from having things on the shelf and having people come in and buy something and leave. But they're having to go to this length of hiding the stock from their own customers for the sake of being able to fulfill orders from their customers. It's fucking weird. And and by the way, Jim, I do see your question. I'll bring it up in a second. We're looking at this whole thing from that PowerCon perspective. And you can't tell me that if you looked at the video from PowerCon, you can't tell me there's not some Sun Man figures hanging around. You can't. Now, granted, I understand you may not be able to fulfill everything, so you're waiting. I get that. But the big, on top of everything else, and I know I've said it to death in my videos, and Sal knows I've said this in my videos, but I want Sal's perspective. The big sin here is that everything other than the Origin, other than the PowerCon exclusives, I think announcing the pre-order for all this other stuff to go live less than 48 hours after you make the announcement is just dumb. It's fucking dumb. Because you're asking people, then you've got to like decide on what you want out of this fairly large range of things that are suddenly available, some of which people had gone, well, screw it, I'm not going to be able to get these figures from PowerCon, I might as well buy booze or whatever. And it's asinine. What is your thought process or reaction to that complete lack of foresight in this? Oh, here, these are all going to be up for pre-order in a day and a half. Go have fun. Like, do you agree that that's like the biggest faux pas there, or am I tone deaf?
Well, it's I don't know. I've seen my oh goodness. I've seen a few instances where like Mezco, they'll announce something like, "Hey,
sure,
looky," and then you got to wait like 6 or 8 months before it goes.
Yeah. I think I might have lost you here. Your connection went Kaputski.
Went Kaputski.
Yeah, I heard Mezco, and they announced something, and it's like 3 to 6 months before it goes up for pre-order. That's the last thing I heard about.
Yeah, and then it'll be like a year or 2 years until you actually get it in hand. So, because I paid
right, and granted,
March 2020.
Yeah, and granted, that's a different thing. But I think when you're looking at a Mattel Creations where they appear to have somewhat a thumb on the pulse, no pun intended, on what they're able to do, I think they could have afforded to stagger those pre-orders by at least a week. Like, yes, if you want to make something available for pre-order that Monday, like, I'm not going to begrudge you that. Choose your battles, right? But asking people to spend, if they want everything, like, it was close to like $300 when it was all said and done for all the stuff they had up on offer. That's not cool, man. It's just not cool. And I don't mind a slightly longer shipping window for some of this stuff. Like, I get it. You got to make it. In some cases, you have to make it. But it just, none of it, it all stinks to high heaven. And I don't much dig it.
I would say Hasbro does something kind of similar where sometimes, like, whenever they do their Polycon, they'll, oh wow, I can hear myself. That is a massive delay. Holy shit. But when they do PulseCon, sometimes they'll make announcements, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, this goes up for pre-order today at 1." Like, okay, that's a lot, but all right.
And I guess that's part of where like my frustration came from, because this isn't like a BBTS situation where we're being asked to pre-order something and they charge when it ships, like Mattel Creations and Mezco and other companies like it. They take the money up front, and then they have your money they can put in their bank account and make interest off of it, and they'll ship it whatever the fuck they feel like it.
Right.
It's weird. Well, not weird. Like, I get it. I understand where it comes from. I don't like it. And Jim Largo brings up a very fair point. The question is, do y'all really expect fair play from Mattel after the recently exposed shenanigans? No, I don't. But I expect them, upon having been exposed, to say something, anything that's not just complete jackassery. Like, they have said absolutely jack since last Monday. And how hard is it to say, yeah, we had manufactured some Triclopses, we're waiting on the Secrets of Origin stuff to make it to shore. We don't like the fact that PowerCon people didn't get a chance to get it. We're making more and reaching out to them privately. Sunman is being produced. Like, that's not the best answer, but I would certainly take that over this complete silence that they're giving everybody. I don't understand that thought process, especially when you look over at the Mattel forums for Motu. And I called this out in the video, and I hate to keep referencing my own videos. That's really fucking dumb. But for those that maybe haven't seen it, there's like this one page, this one thread where someone's like, I got everything I wanted. And it has like 3 or 4 responses. And there's a thread that says, fuck this shit. This is bullshit. Da 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 da. And it's got 4, 5, 6 pages of replies on it. They're all like, argh! And it just, at a passive glance at their own forum, they should know there's a problem that they need to address. And yet they're like, and looking at Michael's video, when Pixel Dan had to correct the lead designer of the Motu brand on the name of the fucking ripped off duplicate. What the fuck, dude? Like, I don't. It's like, I realize this is a lot of like, hey, this is dumb. Yeah, I know, that's kind of the conversation. But am I missing something, or am I being even remotely reasonable here? Because I often question that about myself, Sal. I really do.
No, I don't think it's anything out of it. Like, something unreasonable would be like, I want them to FedEx everything to me overnight, land a helicopter on the ship, and fly it to my house. Like, that would be unreasonable.
Well, like, I'll give you guys an example in context. So, like, I have 2 other figures that aren't yet in hand, but they've been sitting, waiting to be shipped for, like, almost 2.5 months. It's Roboto and Ninjor. And it was from one seller on eBay, and they had the Ninjor in hand, and the Roboto was a pre-order. And I've reached out to them, and they finally said, yeah, this Roboto is not getting to us. The vendor we're getting it from it's been slower than expected, and we don't know when we're going to get it. And I said, okay, that's fair, and I get it. I don't like it, but that's cool. Cancel the Roboto, send me the Ninjor, give me a refund on Roboto. They did. And I'm ashamed to say that I spent $35 on that Roboto. So I went out on eBay to find a listing which had the actual package that I was getting in the listing, and stressed the fact they had it in hand. And right now, Roboto is being shipped to me from Canada. And when a private eBay seller can pull similar shenanigans but be held accountable, like, you're Mattel. You're one of the biggest toy companies in the world. You can't just tell us the real thing. Like, I don't think anyone at the corporate level understands. and this is any corporation, but especially toy companies at this stage, not saying anything is worse than admitting failure. Like, it's okay to admit a mistake if you learn from it and you want to atone for it, which they're clearly not doing. Drives me up a frickin' wall.
That's acknowledging your failure or a misstep or what have you. It says a lot more.
Keep talking.
Wow, that's a lot of whatever that is. Sorry, I'm on
Oops, I screwed that up. Yep, keep going.
So, like, acknowledge it, like, as you know, when you mess up, you know, in my line of work or whatever, acknowledging that you messed up usually helps. You know, but acting like you didn't do anything wrong is just going to dig that hole even deeper. So, I know they're worried about their shareholders and all those crazy people, because at the end of the day, they're a business. They're out to make money. They're not out to, you know, oh, here's free action figures for everybody for a year. You know, they have overhead they have to make. So from that standpoint, I understand wanting to appease the shareholders because they're the ones that financially back everything. But I don't know. After a certain point, you really have to acknowledge the fans and the people who are buying this stuff and, you know, keeping you in business. You know what I mean?
This is why I now understand Tony's insistence I get a wireless lav pack. Because, yeah, I should have just had that on. I could have answered you about 15, 20 seconds ago just by clicking a little switch. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, I get when you're a publicly traded company, there's certain concessions that you need to make and certain things you want to avoid. But I worked in the stock market for a little bit, many, many, many years ago. And one thing that I found is that companies who communicate with their customers and shareholders alike tend to do better than those that only like talk to their shareholders. Like, I don't, at some point in the last 20 years, that got lost, and I can't figure out why whatsoever. Joe Dubecki says that was pretty fucked up. Literally anything we just talked about that could apply to, and I would agree 100%. I do want to call out Keith Knight as hello, chaps. Hello, sir. Didn't mean to ignore you there, sir. And I understand that Mr. Jorgensen is they're engraving their name into a machete, apparently. I don't really know what that's about, but it's cool, you know. James Salzberg says, "Amen, Jim. I was a Series 7 for many years. Glad I'm not anymore." Fair enough. No worries. Respect you, man. It's good to see you. But, and granted, I don't need this whole stream to be about Mattel. We've been hearing a lot of shit about Mattel for the last, week plus. But prior to their stream at PowerCon, I had some misguided hope that they might avoid some of the pratfalls that Hasbro had done. And, they're not. And it sucks. The only thing Mattel has going for them with the Origins line is that the actual toys are fine. Like, the toys themselves, I'm okay with. That is saying a lot when you consider their competition and other versions of those toys and everything in between. Thank Godzilla that they're actually good toys for the most part. And chances are, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Sal, but I'm pretty sure that if the Origins line wasn't kind of pitch perfect for what it is, no one would be buying their shit. Like, that's the impression I get. Do you feel the same way?
About Origins?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like, I was walking back to my unit, and it, like, Bluetoothed
No
back to
worries.
the unit before I could get into it, so I kind of missed half of that question.
What I was saying was that Motu Origins, like that particular line, is the only reason I give Mattel pretty much any credit at all. It's pretty pitch perfect for what it is. It speaks to kids and collectors alike, and without that line, I don't think anyone would give a shit. Like people would just
Like,
not buy anything, and yeah.
No, like if it were not for
Like,
Origin, I wouldn't be buying the Revelations figures at all. Like, nah. So, and the
yeah,
fact that Origin is so strong, like, yes, the Filmation cartoon exists. That's an obvious, but there's no current iteration of that version of Motu. There's no movie. There's
right.
no cartoon. There's no nothing. So it's standing on its own two legs, figuratively speaking, pun intended, both times. But like, so I'm part of this Motu group that used to be really great. When Origins first kicked off, it was like 5,000 people, something like that, and it was all about, oh, there's a new pre-order. Oh, is anyone finding this? And yada yada yada. And then out of nowhere, the group changed from an Origins group to just a Motu group, and all the fucking glue sniffers like flooded that group. And there's people in there that are like, yeah, I don't like Origins. Yeah, I think it looks dumb. I'm like, do you even like Motu? Because that's what it's supposed to be, like an homage to the original figures. Like,
Right.
And there's people in there that only like Revelations somehow. They're like, I don't like the Filmation. I like Revelations better.
Like, I understand, like, maybe liking those designs. Like, I can understand that if that's, like, the aesthetic you go for. I don't agree with it, but I can see where, like, one might be more appealing than the other. Last week, Suze, my partner, she went to Target on her way home and checked the toy aisles because she's that kind of gal. And she came across two Masterverse figures, Skelegod and Evelyn. And she really liked the sculpt on Evelyn. And to be fair, that version of Evelyn's really nice. And I prodded her a bit about it. And she was like, she admitted to having bought Evelyn for herself and then realizing that, well, if I don't bring him home something for him, that's really rude. Especially when he doesn't collect this line. So she brought home Skelegod, which, let's be honest, was a nice big stroke to the old ego. And I said, okay, we're not collecting this line in its like Masterverse. It looks good, but this family's not doing this. But you brought these two home. These work together. These can kind of be like our showcase avatars for ourselves, if you will, and they'll be cool and they'll be fine. Because they're really great looking figures, right? Even though I'm not really a huge fan of Revelations, like it's fine. It doesn't ruin the Filmation series for me, nor does it make me like go like, oh, this is so great. Either like it's whatever, it's fine. And I understand making a figure line to support it. I understand making a figure line to support this other stuff, but I was like, nah, I don't want this stuff. So she brought it home, and I was like, oh, okay. But she brought home, if she was going to bring home two, that was the right two to bring home. You know what I mean? Because she could have got, they had He-Man and Tila and a couple others, and she's like, I almost brought them home. And I'm like, well, first of all, they're too damn expensive. There's no way that I would have been okay with this. But you brought home those two. Those work. Cool. And it's weird. James Halsberg says that Motu Origin scratches his vintage itch. In fact, sold his Mint on Core 2000's anniversary repro faker. There you go. And I feel like, and Sal, maybe you can weigh in on this, but I kind of feel like in some ways that Origins is Mattel's kind of answer to the Classics line. Kind of saying, we're not going to completely go that direction, but we want to have control of it and make it a retail release and kind of scratch that same itch. That's the feeling that I got from it. Do you guys get the same vibe?
Possibly. I think they saw the market for all these properties coming back, like Hasbro going really hard in the paint with kind of retro versions of everything, and
Sure.
Who was the other one that did? And I think that was kind of their answer. They were like, 300, Mike 72. Jesus Christ, sorry about that. It's my radio.
Okay. So it's not as loud as you think it is.
Just a second.
Yep. So while Sal is doing that, Ted, you're absolutely right. She's amazing. Love her to death. And some people know, some people don't. I'll just bring this up while I'm here. I've known Suze for over 20 years. We served together in the military. She's a Navy vet herself. Even my aunt, my only surviving paternal side of my family relative, was like, have you met her in person? And I'm like, yeah. Met her over 20 years ago. We served together for many years, and we've been very close ever since. And now we're together, and she's already here, and everything's fine. She goes, oh, that's much better than your last one. And she was not wrong. Jim Largo brings up a subject change, which is cool. He says, Michael French mentioned his toy photography plans for Desert Rat. What are you and Sal planning to do with your Valverse action figures when your ship comes in? I will come back to that. It's an amazing question. James Salzberg says, figures can be purchased if you like them, even the source material sucks. Hard agree. I like that. I was very clear. I just didn't want to get into that line because the price point's too high for my taste. They're great sculpts. They're quite fun. I really don't mind the Revelations series overall. It didn't ruin anything for me. It's just not like blowing my hair back, so to speak. So I didn't want to invest in it. And then Ted says, I knew we were in trouble with Revelation when they said it would be a separate toy line, Origins not be the supporting line. That's the one part of it I kind of get, in as much as I wouldn't expect Origins to support Revelations, because it would be like some people, Sal has to go work as a thing. The aesthetic is different enough from Revelations to Origins that I think a lot of kids, for example, wouldn't necessarily want those toys. But then again, when you look at the price point on the Revelations toys, like, those are big fucking toys, man. Like, they're, for a child hands, they're huge. If I didn't have those figures in the bin already, I would pull them out and show you, because they're big. They're nice. I like them. And to be fair, I like the design of Revelations quite a bit, actually. I think it's a nice, take. Star Fox Rain, thank you so much. Star Fox Rain knows me from Twitter. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. So yeah, I feel like that the Revelations line suffers a little bit because of that. I think the price point's a bit much. And if you sacrifice the scale, you sacrifice detail, and also if it's too samey to Origins, there's no call for people to go then and get those also, right? So if there are people that want to, collect both, there needs to be a reason to collect both. So I understand that decision, even if I'm not super comfortable with it. Ted Millich says, that was before I saw the art from Revolutions. Fair enough. Bjorn says they're definitely units. Yeah, they're just trying to sell something. Ted Millich says they were saying it would be a continuation of the old cartoons. I figured art would be close too. Yeah, I was hoping the same thing, but I didn't. If it didn't, I just know better at this point. Sal says that he will be back if he can, but work does in fact call. No big deal. So. But thank you all for being here. If you're just joining us, this is a completely informal conversation that was kind of the offshoot of a stream from Retro Blasting and Analog Toys to their patrons. And when I get into this vibe where I've seen like a few videos or a few live streams from channels that I respect, I just want to keep going. So that's why we're here. We're just having a discussion. So nothing is off the table. Ask me anything. We're just going to have some fun. Ted says he's at work too. Fair enough. So I'm going to ask a question to chat since we're kind of in the Motu thing. And, well, actually, before I do that, let me come back around to Jim Largo's question. Jim's one of my favorite people in the world, so I don't want to, like, leave that question sit. And if Sal comes back, I'll make sure we ask him that as well, okay? So, again, the question was, Michael French mentioned his toy photography plans for Desert Rat. What are my plans to do with my Valverse action figures when the ship comes in? That's a good question. Because he is in the same... Action Force is in the same scale as, say, Marvel Legends. You know what? I think I know what I want to do. At the very least, I want to create a picture where it's clear that Desert Rat has cold-cocked Dr. Doom, and Dr. Doom is on the ground just like, now what the fuck do I do? Like, I just got knocked the fuck out by Desert Rat. Now what? So I kind of feel like that kind of a thing. Like, if I ended up getting Galactus, which, spoilers, I won't, I would have done the same thing with that figure. Just kind of Desert Rat on Galactus' chest going like, say something. You know? That's the kind of thing that I would do because Tony very much is my superhero. I love that guy to death. He's one of the best people I've met in this realm, or any realm for that matter, and I love him to death. I adore him. So I would photograph him in any way that I could that showed him off to be the absolute badass that he is. Bjorn Jorgensen says, keep the Iconicon vibe going. That's the plan, brother. That's the plan. James Salzberg says, my wind down time, sharing time with all my friends. That's kind of where we're going here. Ted says, my job consists of hours of boredom with a few minutes here and there of panic. I mean, that's work in the Western world, unfortunately. And your job consists of taking care of your grandfather. That's very noble, Bjorn. It's very, very noble. Caretaking is a really unique and underappreciated profession. So kudos to you, my friend. Kudos to you. And cheers. Oh, by the way, I don't know if y'all have seen this glass before. Cobra! Just saying. I mean, kind of a mark for Cobra. I like G.I. Joe. I like those characters, but I always thought Cobra had the better fashion sense. Generally speaking, Serpentor notwithstanding. Okay, I'm not a huge fan of that, you know. But we can talk about literally anything. This is an AMA. You can ask me anything. I don't care if it's about toys, movies, YouTube, Twitch, Marine Corps, music, anything. Like, nothing is off the table tonight because I got an hour and a half before Suze is even off work, let alone home. And I didn't have any video ideas to record tonight, so I'm going to hang out with you guys because the hell with it. Why not, right? Definitely the 90s. Everything was better than the 90s, right? George says, I used to work and take care of both my grandparents. Oh, goodness. That's a lot of stuff to do. But I'm glad that you're focused on taking care of your grandfather. That's, again, really noble, and that's awesome, man. It's awesome. Jim Margo says, I'm thinking about trying to recreate some scenes from Action Force comics. They're still, I have them up on the shelf. I haven't read them yet. If I wasn't doing this, I probably would have started reading those comics. I have them all. I'm current. I bought them all from Bobby. I have them, and I'm stoked. I'm in this place in my life where my brain gets so revved up that what I need is time alone that I don't think needs to be filled with other stuff to sit and read them. So realistically, I'll probably read them the next night the Suze falls asleep before I do, which is, spoilers, pretty much every night because my brain's always going a very Tasmanian devil kind of a thing. Bjorn Jorgensen says, my grandfather loves your channel, by the way. He really likes Dancing Godzilla. Thank you, Grandpa. If you're watching this before or after, whatever you're dealing with, you're going to be fine, and you're helping raise a fine human in Bjorn. He's one of my favorite people, and by proxy, you're one of my favorite people. So we'll keep those Godzillas dancing for as long as we can, sir. You just keep on. Much respect. I would agree, Ted. It's one of the best, the most well-packed comics I've ever seen in my entire life. Really, really top shelf. Jim says, so toilet reading then, throne literature? No, I've never done that. Ever in my life have I done that. Read on the toilet. I'll take the phone sometimes with me if I know I'm going to be there for a minute, but it's never been my thing. Like, I have buddies that used to call the bathroom the reading room. And I was like, what? Like, just take a shit, wipe, and go read. Like, why does this process have to be this long, involved thing where you're like, well, I'm now going to involve print on pages now? I don't get it, personally. Ted Milich says, hello, Bjorn's grandpa, and Bjorn says hello back. It's nice to see you, sir, in this realm. But seriously, like, it's a high honor to be entertaining someone's grandfather. Although I'm old enough to be people's grandfathers at this stage in my life. So very cool. Really appreciate you. And if there's ever anything we can do to make you smile, please let us know. Rez, by the way, I missed your hello earlier in terms of like calling it out, but I saw you. Rez says, throne literature, never heard that one before. Yeah, that was kind of a thing from like the 70s and 80s that I recall, where people just kind of read in the bathroom. It was just a thing. I don't completely endorse that, as I've said, but yeah, it's totally a thing. It's totally a thing. But how in the hell have we already been live for almost an hour? Like, I thought we just sat down. What the hell is going on in the world today? I don't get it, kids. I really don't get it. But I'm having a good time. I'm so glad y'all are here. For an Ask Me Anything, I'm not seeing a lot of questions. Come on, there's got to be something you want to know from my perspective, or something you want to know about me, or something. Ted says, before the smartphone, I used to read in there nice and private. Fair enough. Fair enough. Bjorn says he's fascinated about what you can do with computers. Oh, well, sir, I have a very long and storied history with computers. I remember when the Apple IIe first came out. I messed around with punch card computers for a bit. My first PC was a 386 from like 1990, I want to say. And I got my first computer of my own that was just mine in 2001. And then it just spiraled from there. And I've been doing tech support for almost every major technology platform on some level or another for all of that time. When I was in the Marine Corps, I was attached to the NSA, and I did some light Linux programming. I've done cryptology. I've done mobile support, tablet support, Mac, PC, all that stuff. And then when it comes to streaming, like the softwares and different ins and outs of that, I've been dealing with that stuff for 6, 7, 8 years now. Which is still emerging technology. And I just love learning new things, and then in part teaching others how to use that stuff effectively. So it's a passion, and it's something that I enjoy doing. And I'm definitely not the only person that can do this stuff. Like, this platform is very, by design, very simple to use. That's why so many of my friends use it. But there's definitely a lot of cool stuff that can be done with a computer these days, and I'm glad that it entertains you on any level whatsoever. I'm really glad that you're here. Jim Margo says, sometimes the toilet is the only quiet place in the house. That's true. Bjorn asks, what's the most overrated G.I. Joe vehicle? Good question. So, bear in mind, and although I'm not a dyed-in-the-wool G.I. Joe collector these days, I was very heavy into G.I. Joe as a kid. That's a rough one, man. Honestly, and this is going to be a big moment, all right? Not like huge for the channel. David, I see you. Hello. honestly, like just Godzilla's honest truth, the USS Flag is the most overrated G.I. Joe vehicle, and here's why. Before you erupt, let me finish. The USS Flag, the way it was released natively, was it was too expensive for what it was, and it took too much modification for it to be realized as what it could be. So you have to put another $50 to $100 into the thing just to get it looking remotely like it should. And I hope Sal can back me up on this.
I can.
Oh yeah? Did you hear what I had to say about the flag?
Yeah. Well, I'm of the mind that the flag is a playset, not a vehicle, because it doesn't move.
Right.
With that, I would also lump the Defiant in with that.
I almost did, except that it does have a lot of vehicle tendencies, and it does have a lot of function over form, unlike the flag. That's why it just narrowly escaped that.
Sorry about that. I had it right next to my radio.
I get it.
The thing I have, and I'd have to double check my numbers on this. What's the year disparity between the Defiant and actual like astronaut space GI Joes? Because I think the only ones that were available were the ones that came with it, pretty much, like Payload and all those.
Right, and I want to say that Battle Force 2000 came out in 89, 90? Somewhere in there. Defiant was an 87 release, right?
87 sounds correct, but again, I wouldn't know off the top of my head. But the spaceship's kind of cool, but I'm looking at like the gantry and the crawler. Like without the space shuttle, what is that? You know what I mean?
Right, and granted, they all are meant to work together. So like,
right, they work in tandem, but if you break one or you lose one, you know what's one without the other.
Yeah.
And it's
that's fair.
Like the space the shuttle itself. I'm trying to go off memory here because I've seen one in person one time for like $200, and I passed on it like a fucking dingus.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not knowing how expensive. Not. And this is in like 2019 before the prices really took off on everything.
Right.
Meh. But it only has like a couple of cannons on it, so it's like what is this exactly?
What would I do with this by itself? Right. Then you have to buy a couple shells, and then you spend like triple getting everything together and all that shit.
Right. On its own, like it's no Millennium Falcon, it's no X-Wing. Like not to compare apples to oranges necessarily, but it's like there's no.
I get you.
You know what's it gonna fight?
Right. And I think that's a great point, Sal. I think it's a great failing of a lot of the great toy lines is that there was a lot of like imbalance towards the good guys versus the bad guys when it came to vehicles and equivalents and things like that. Right. And I think that's part of why G.I. Joe did start to win. They put all this R&D into the USS Flag, but didn't go a step further and make the Snake Mountain equivalent for I forget the name of that thing that someone 3D printed. The fucking god. It's the one that's basically Snake Mountain, but for Cobra. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, oh jeez,
like the Palace or whatever the hell it was.
I've got Snake Mountain stuck in my brain.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked about it before.
Yeah, we have, and it's gigantic. I know, not Smith Lord. Is it Smith Lord? One of them is going to do like a run, but they've had that page on there for like 5 years with no updates. So
yeah. There's one guy I know of that's doing it right now, and I don't remember the guy's name. It was on Instagram. I just happened to come across it. I was like, oh my god! And we were like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. I just got wind today, like spoilers, folks, because there's going to be videos about it as I get more information from this person. I bought a repro landing pad.
Thank you, James.
Serpent Castle. Thank you. Yes. I bought the ramp that attaches to the landing pad for the Hall of Justice, today, a repro one for like $12. It was like, it looks fine, it works. And I talked to the guy and I said, do you make these a lot? Are you going to be relisting this? Because I know a few people that probably need this. And he said, oh yeah. And then he just volunteered that he is engineering the Tower of Doom playset that was never released by Kenner. Like, he's building that right now. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what? Because I know the prototype for the head got sold a couple years back. And I don't know if he's just painstakingly making slices and doing all this. I don't know anything yet. He told me he's doing that. And obviously I will buy one if it looks even remotely decent. But like, what? Because like, if you were to compare me to Michael French, I am to this Tower of Doom playset as Michael French is to that Bespin playset. This would be like the jam. It would be really, really cool. And I hope that he's not just pulling my leg. I really hope he's not. Because I haven't seen any evidence yet, and I don't want to name names because the guy does make some pretty good stuff from what I've seen. But that's kind of cool.
Right.
But I'm going to loop back around to this discussion. Go ahead, Sal. Go ahead. I'm going to for you.
Yeah, I find, like, with playsets, thank God, and thank Godzilla even, for Michael French.
Yes.
But as a kid, like, I could discern what a good playset was versus what wasn't a good playset. And,
sure.
But I could never articulate what it was until, I started watching Michael's videos. I'm like, yeah. I was like, if there's multiple floors, you need a way to get to those floors. So I was tired of them just magically elevating, Or it's like, oh, there's one entry, there's one exit, or like this cannon doesn't make sense, or like I can never like put my finger or explain what about places I didn't like until I watched those videos.
And that's something that I'm going to articulate in the Hall of Justice full review, which is going to come out a little bit later, because I will, again, spoilers, folks that watch the channel. Once this ramp arrives, I have a complete Hall of Justice now. Like that's a thing. So I'm sorry if that like blew your brain up, but that's going to be the title of the damn video. I'm sorry. Is the idea that like to go up to the landing pad, I got to climb on top of the damn prison cell to go to my flying craft? Like, why not create some form of why not the ramp go the other side to where the heroes normally are? Put a ladder there or something. I don't claim to know the engineering reason. It works, but it's a little weird. Jim Largo asks, what's my favorite programming language to mess around with? I like HTML because it's simple. PHP's not too far behind it. I don't like anything else, honestly, to be fair. Working in Linux and Unix is just a pain in the dick. I just don't like it. So I prefer the web-based stuff. David, I said I saw you, but hey, nice to see you. Good to see you. Also, Gaming Toy Boy, I see you liking things all the time. I appreciate you. You're the best. Thank you so much. Ted is right. Sal is back. James Salzberg likes the earthquake and mentioned serpent castles. And I think I'm close to catching up. Ted Miller says the outside of the printer was neat with inside of it squares. No way to get from right. We were just talking about that. I would also love that Tower of Doom, Tower of Darkside. Bjorn, I'm coming back to your question. Jim Largo says a Dr. Doom throne room would be a neat playset, not a bathroom. Fair. I feel like a Dr. Doom, like I think there's a billion playsets you could make for the Marvel Legends line because there's so many good figures that would benefit from that shit. And I don't think we're going to see any of that stuff. So I think the maker community is where we have to go. And I just think someone needs a kick in the butt to make that happen. Look at the Toy Biz Daily Bugle playset, which was well intentioned, but it's a piece of shit. Falls apart all the time.
Massive piece of shit.
Just every time I think about that, I think of Ed, and I think about, oh my god, all of your money out the window, dude. Like, what the fuck? I feel horrible for Ed about that.
I had that as a kid. Like, I got it for my birthday.
You told me that the last time you were here. Like, I know we come in circles. Hello, that's friends. That's a thing. Yeah, and it fell apart on you as a kid, didn't it?
It didn't even last at the end of the day. Because it's made
I
out
remember
of
the story
like,
now.
mixture of cardboard and plastic, and they don't fully connect the way they, like the cardboard's too thick for the connectors or too thin. I don't really remember now, but I just remember like it would not hold together. There's no surface depth to it, so like Spider-Man's about the only one that's enough to actually like stand on it. And if you're bad guys, it was like I got that Juggernaut from Toy Biz on the same day, and I don't remember. I got like another figure, and Juggernaut was way too big for any of it. And it's not a good playset. Grossly out of scale. Like if the Toy Biz figures had been 3 3/4, we might have had something. But
right,
like 5.5 almost, and just it was bad. It was really bad. Like
and
elevator gimmick in the back, and the elevator's big enough for like Spider-Man, but it's like the elevator's
but that's it. And why would he need an elevator?
Right. So it was.
It's yeah. As much as it pains me to say it, I don't think it's really practical to have full-blown play sets that are worth their weight for 6-inch figures. I would love to see them. I just don't see them being practical at all. So I think that the move should be to be like these miniature dioramas, like a Doctor Doom throne room, or like a situation room from Avengers Mansion, or
Danger or something.
Danger Room. Yeah. So you just have this one thing and you can kind of do all this stuff. Or to create these things in such a way that you could have multiple pieces that you could choose to buy, and some stuff would work together and build to an eventual playset. Like take the Build-A-Figure concept and take the exclusivity out of it and just make it into like, well, you can get a Danger Room. You can get a front of the school. You can get all these different things and then link them together so you can pick and choose.
They kind of did that. They had like panels for a Danger Room. But to the best of my knowledge, they didn't actually connect together. Like you could flush them together, but there was no way to connect.
Much like those Castle Grayskull pieces we're seeing in the various sets from Mattel, where it makes sense together, but they're not intrinsically like click. Right. So on one hand, when I first heard they didn't link together, I was disappointed, but then I thought, nah, I kind of see what they're going for, where you could like, you don't have to have them all for them to work together with Grayskull. So although it would be nice to see like this interconnected kind of a Tetris kind of vibe with all these different pieces, I do like the fact that you don't have to have everything for it to be viable. So it's a give and take, because maybe you...
Fucking sorry, it's my radio. We have this guy who doesn't know.
No worries.
He only knows how to scream into the radio for some reason. Like he hasn't out. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think everyone that uses radios has one guy in their group that happens in.
Like at a Wendy's or something, and like a double cheeseburger.
Yeah, like the whole but to come back around to that, it would be nice for it all linked together. But I don't think every person collecting the line necessarily wants the Battlefield Warriors thing. And if they were to like take all those like base pieces from all the different things and like sell them separately as like additions to Grayskull or something, that would be okay. But I get both from a commerce perspective. I understand why it's done that way. So I'm not a huge fan of like the corporate initiative behind it, but I also understand it. If you're going to manufacture these things, you need to give a reason for them to sell. Like I get that, because the vac metal He-Man by himself is not the selling point. To me, the selling points are those little dragon guys, the Grayskull piece, and the additional heads. Right, it's just the little additional parts you get, and the vac metal is just a bonus, obviously. Because because you can goddamn guarantee that the second I get that in my hot little hands, someone found that for me, thank goodness. Like the OG battle damage He-Man that I have that's not vac metal. Sorry, you're staying in the bag 5 ever, and I'm just using your parts with that one. Battle damage Battle Cat. There's going to be places where that's viable, but it's not going to be a centerpiece by any stretch of the imagination. But those little dragons are going right on my gray skull as soon as I make it up. They're just cool. They're just cool. He has to go again, so I'll answer these questions. Old Meta Cardboard ironically says, my cardboard playsets held together pretty well until I blew them apart. Fair enough, I get it. James Salzberg is right when he says that Toy Biz Daily Bugle did suck. And Ted does ask, is that where Dr. Doom did his reading? Possibly. Ted also says, I used to have the Castle Lines used at Cobra's base. I can see that happening. Absolutely. Bjorn, I am going to come back to this question here later, but I haven't forgotten it. Jim Largo says, NECA makes a pretty decent building display, makes a good Spidey versus Center 6 playset, but it's pricey. Exactly. NECA does have some great diorama stuff, but I'm just not prepared to spend what they're trying to charge for that. There's better, more generic things that cost less you can do that with. Diamond selected Stargate. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Bjorn says, I'm that guy sometimes. I think we're all that guy sometimes, pal. And Epic Badger, I was just talking about you. Howdy, how's everyone tonight? I'm doing great. It's good to see you, Jesse. It's great to see you, brother. Love you to death. Thank you so much. Yes. Yeah, Woman of Cardboard, yes. Star Wars playset as Cobra Base, yes. I think it was G.I. Joe Berg that brought it up in one of their podcasts or a video or something. And then I went looking for that thing. It's not horrible expensive, but it's expensive enough that, and then I would have to build it out and do certain things with it to make it really work, that I don't think necessarily that is viable. But plus, when you consider that I have one G.I. Joe figure, and only one, it's not something that I have a lot of impetus behind me to do. But yes, that's a really great place to start if you're looking to make a Cobra playset of your own, a Cobra base of your own, for sure. I think it's a great piece. So coming back around to Bjorn Jorgensen, what 80s line needs a update? Honestly, I would say Star Wars. Star Wars could benefit a lot from current technology to make those that much better. I loved that line as a kid so much. Slaughter Steelgrave is my spirit animal. I love that dude to death. And there was, like, if you read the comics, like really read the comics, like there was a cool story there. And I really would have loved to have seen something more done with that line. I think it's horribly underutilized. Bjorn also asks, says the creek behind my house always Cobra base. Fair enough. Nerd Rage. This is one of my old buddies from Iowa. Great to see you in the stream, by the way. He says, Mask! I agree. I would love to see a reissue of Mask. Honestly, they could take the old molds, repress everything, and give us some new stuff, expand some play sets, call it a day. I'd be very, very happy. I loved Mask as a kid. Loved it. Jesse says, I assume it's about the 2-pack that should go out tomorrow. I had to go find a shipping place with packaging, wide enough box for than Dag Toy. Yeah, and as soon as I mentioned that, like, I was worried about the card back, I felt like an asshole for saying that. Sorry. Let me know where we're at with that. I really apologize. That was kind of a shit move on my part. I'm sorry, brother. Kevin Millich says, Sky Commanders, love that line. Me too, man. I did that part of a video. Like, I love Sky Commanders so much. I had a bunch of them. But like I said in the video that I did about, like, various toy lines that I don't collect, setting those up and tearing them down was part of the allure of play for me. Because you had to, like, trap yourself in this weird, like, borderline bondage thing just to play with them, and then to get out of the room, you had to tear them down or else you were trapped. Great toy line, lots of fun, but a bit limited in their play value because of the fact that you had to have structures to strap everything to and tie everything to. But I loved it. World Made of Cardboard says Slaughter Stoker was the only Star Wars figure I had, but loved it. He looked fucking great, didn't he? Great. Jim Largo says, I always thought Rom the Space Knight should have been Marvel Legends treatment. I would buy the hell out of a Rom the Space Knight, but I believe there's a licensing issue there, honestly. Yeah. I agree. I just don't think it's happening. Jim Largo said Rom was an interesting Marvel character for a minute. Absolutely. Late 70s, for sure. Ted says your mom wasn't a fan. That's fair. Ted says, I know 90s properties, but I want the F-14 from SWAT Cats with 3.75-inch figures. Fair enough. Okay, I can see that. And yeah, that was a good comic for sure. Like, I was big into comics in, like, from the, like, I would say, like, early to mid 80s through, like, the mid 90s. I was a really big mark for comics. I got lucky because the orthodontist that I have, I know, weird vibe, right? The orthodontist I had, his sister worked in distribution for Marvel. So we had an entire back room with shelves upon shelves of comic books. And they would just be plastered out on the waiting room table. And anytime you went there, you could take a comic book, no questions asked. But when you went there to get something major done, you could go back and pick like 2 or 3. So, like, the majority of my comic book collection from the 80s came from his back room. So I had a lot of work done, and my teeth are still kind of messed up, to be fair. But I have to say, without that particular orthodontist, I don't know that I would have been into comics as much as I am today. Really interesting stuff. Hasbro owned ROM as of 2017. Okay, good to know. Did not know that. And Joe DeBecki calls out ROM 1 through 20. It was awesome after it falls a bit, in your humble opinion. Good night. Good night, Joe. Thank you for stopping by. Love you to death. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Bjorn says, Grandpa says, thanks for your service. He was a non-back in the day. World Made of Cardboard says, gotta go to bed very early day tomorrow. Don't blame you one bit, but thank you for being here as well. Thank you very much. But there's, like, at this point in my life, there's just so much stuff that I want to, like, pay homage to, and we have more opportunities to do that with toy collecting now than we did 10, 15, 20 years ago, 30 years ago even, or more. So I have found it difficult on where I want to focus my attention because of that. But, you know, Motu Origins made it easy. Parts of the Marvel Legends line made it easy. And certainly Superpowers collection is unique and vintage, so it's easy to go back and check that stuff out. We apparently have a Sal again. Welcome back, sir. How are you?
Oh, struggling with work.
We covered a lot of ground. There was a question that came up that asked, what 80s property would you like to see revamped? My answer to that question was Star Wars, because I feel like there's so much more you could do with that line with more articulation and fleshing out the stories that were in the comic books. Where are you at with something like that?
Captain Power.
Okay. Very underutilized line, for sure.
Yeah. How's my clarity? Am I coming through clear?
You sound fine, brother. Sound fine.
There's no echo or anything?
No, I haven't heard echo once. The only thing I ever hear sound other than your voice is when that cheesehead that runs the drive-thru where you work doing his thing.
Okay. But yeah, I'd bring back Captain Power, but I as a fan of 6-inch, I wouldn't want them to be 6-inch. I'd want them to be 3 3/4 with the updated G.I. Joe body. That way we can still utilize the planes and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, sure. That'd be really cool. Nerd Rage says, I got a split. If anyone can name that movie, I will find something cool to send you. But Nerd Rage, thanks for being here. Like, we've been friends for years. It's so good to see you participating in YouTube and stuff like that. Please come back. Love hearing your opinions. You're a great dude. Fucking love to see you, man. Rez, there's a slight echo, but everything sounds good. Rez is also kind of particular, and he's been around the channel for 6 years at this point. So I totally get that. James Aldrich got a mention with vintage toys. Absolutely. And I just want to call this out before I move any further. Jim Largo says, I'd love to see Marvel Team Up 2-packs with display backgrounds for classic comic books. I would agree, with the exception of the fact that what they should do is use that as an opportunity to reissue figures that are hard to find, right? So you could do like 3 different Marvel Team Up issues that has the retro Spider-Man in it with another figure. That was by far the biggest recurring character of Marvel Team-Ups. So why not just throw the retro Spider-Man, which is arguably the best Spider-Man in the entire Marvel Legends line, but also one of the hardest to get. Put him in there with other figures, change the cardboard back. It's a low-cost thing to do, which would drive sales. That's my opinion.
Hell yeah. For some reason, that reminded me of the Capcom versus Marvel toys. I don't know why. Yeah. I have this vague memory. Maybe it's like one of those things my brain's created, or maybe it actually happened. But they did like these like versus 2-packs a long time ago.
Yes.
And it was
they did.
just kind of a pet peeve of mine, because it was like, oh, I really want Vega, but it would be paired with some stupid Marvel character. It's like, I really want Wolverine, but I really don't want that. I don't want Zangief or whatever he would be paired with. Like, I get really perturbed, you might say, whenever there's like a multi-pack that like Marvel Legends does, or really
same with Tony. Yeah.
And it's like, I really don't want that figure. Like, just make, like, as the companies, they know exactly who the hell we want. Just put them together. Like, and I get why they do that, because they want to sell, the figure that no one's going to buy, so they lump it in with someone that you do want. But it's like,
yeah. How about you just make the right figures? And using Jim Largo's template, there's one particular Marvel team-up that I really dug, which was Spider-Man, Human Torch versus Super Skrull. So you could have a 3-pack. You'd have Human Torch, Spider-Man, and you have both of those molds already made. They're either out or coming out. And then just add a Super Skrull in there. Yeah, with all the Fantastic Four powers in there.
Yeah. So they've got the body for it, because they did the Build-A-Figure for him almost 2 years ago.
Right. So you could just modify some of like the detachable parts a little bit, do some cool stuff with it. Because he had like the stretchy arm. He would do like a flaming thing fist. So you could do a couple different things with that combination of things that he did. And like some really cool variants of parts, and just do some cool stuff. And it would be a relatively low cost thing to put out, aside from designing a couple extra parts, designing the box, and then you put it out for, $40-$50. It would be a good value proposition on top of it.
Yeah,
it would be a no brainer, but they're not that smart.
Speaking of that retro Spider-Man, I got dragged over the coals for that fucking video, because I did a review on it, and I was not all gaga over it. I was like, this is okay. Like, some of the articulation's good, but Pizza Spidey has some better articulation and all that. But the thing that got me is when they first announced it on one of their little Hasbro live stream things, they said this will be the, what did they say? Not the penultimate, but it will be like the, I can't remember the word they used. It's, basically, this will be like the end-all, be-all Spider-Man. They used a specific word that I use in the video, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was, but it was basically like, this will be the best, definitive, that's the word they used. This will be the definitive 6-inch Spider-Man. And
I know why they said that.
Yeah.
I know why they said that. It's a very simple thing. Because they fucking finally painted in the goddamn webs. That's the only reason that makes him that. They were too lazy to paint in the fucking webs on any other version of that figure. And I'll stand by that, period. If they don't paint in the webs, that's a big fucking problem. It pisses me off, and I don't like.
Yeah. The thing I brought up in that video is that he's still not pinless. So he has the red dots in the middle of the blue or whatever it is. And I'm like, and they were already doing pinless designs at that point, or they had started. I was like, well, they're going to redo this with pinless, so he's not the definitive. And I was like, and he didn't come with wall crawling hands. He came with fists and whip hands, but no wall crawling hands and no webs. And I was like, how can this be the definitive Spider-Man? If like, and I think the negative Spider-Man had just been announced. I was like, a negative Spider-Man comes with all of that and webs. I was like, how is this definitive when he doesn't even have everything that like Pizza Spidey came with? I don't need the slice of pizza or anything like that, but wall crawling hands are kind of important when you're Spider-Man.
Yep, and chat was right there with you. Yeah. Jim Largo says classic Spider-Man retro bodies better than previous. Still, these improvements like pinless joints. Hard agree.
Yeah,
hard agree.
But I got
Ted Milich, same thing.
I got dragged in the comments for that video. Someone's like, when did they use the word definitive? And I was like, in the announcement. And they're like, I'm not seeing it. And I'm like, it's in the live stream that they did. Go fucking, I'm not doing your homework. Go find it.
Right.
So, like, I don't know. It just.
And don't worry, I have, without spoiling the source or the context, I have one on the way. It's very special to me because it's not just about getting one and being a huge Spider-Man fan, but it's the source and the circumstances. So I'm not going to spoil that, but I was so enamored with that particular version of the figure because of the painted webs. For all my vitriol, like that really was important to me, and so few of the figures have actually had that Ditko, trying to think of other artists that would be like Romita or Sal Buscema, kind of a definitive, like, these are the webs, here's how the costume looks. Because if you lose that contrast, you're losing a part of what makes that design so amazing. No pun intended. So for that one to have it really spoke to me, and I was about 6 months too late when I discovered it existed, and I was like, ugh. So I have a loose Spidey from either Homecoming or one of the releases just after that. Like, he's fine. Every time I want to pose him, I have to put him in boiling water, but that's par for the course with Legends, of course. But to see that retro one was like, oh, that's my Spider-Man. So I think what they probably meant was that for those of you that have been Spider-Man fans for a hot minute, this is going to be like your be-all, end-all. But they never frame these statements with any sort of logical context. They never do, which is a shame, and it's dumb.
Yeah. What I'd really love to see, I'm a big fan of the black and red suit. Was it John Romita Sr. that did that one, black and red?
I think so, depending upon which one we're talking about.
It was either senior or junior. I don't remember. It was John Romita, one of the two. Did,
right.
Because it was during that time where there was this like, oh, is it a black suit like with red, or is it a blue suit with red? Because he would use blue for the highlights on the black, and he said it was a black and red suit. Mm-hmm. And I'm
right. It's very much like a Batman kind of a thing, whereas like right. It was a similar thing when Neil beer's getting to me. And I'm also like, there's other Neils that are famous, and I'm like Neil Brennan, Neil Kernan, Neil Adams, who is by far the definitive Batman illustrator of all time. Fight me. He did similar things where you couldn't quite tell if it was meant to be blue and gray or black and gray. It kind of went in and out of both of those.
Right.
And, it was a whole thing. But then you look at...
I'm sorry, to circle back real quick before I lose the thought. I was very happy to see that Spidey buck. Jesus Christ, there he is again. Sorry. I was very happy.
No tomatoes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know. He has an earpiece, so I'm thinking, I don't know, he's trying to be high speed, but maybe that's why, I don't know. But I did pre-order the black suit Spidey on that buck, the retro Spidey buck. So, I don't hate that body design because, black pins aren't really going to show up that well or show up that obviously.
Right. That was my exact, and that's where I was going actually, Sal. I was going to be talking about the black symbiote Spidey, where that's a very good design. Yeah. Despite having pins, it makes they're getting the advantages of the lower cost, but it's not affecting the figure negatively. Same page.
The thing I'm gonna have to look into, because for the light, it's one of those things where it's squares are rectangles, but not every rectangle is a square kind of thing. I can never really remember which way that goes, even though I just said it right. But the Black Suit Spider-Man during the Kraven's Last Hunt, for example, it was just a black suit. It wasn't the symbiote suit anymore. And the difference between them, one of them has black dots on the hand and the other one doesn't. And I don't remember which one's which, but I'm pretty sure the symbiote suit Spidey that we're getting has black dots on the back of the hand. So I can't remember which is which.
I don't know what the toy has, but I can tell you with absolute certainty because I remember collecting those comics vividly. Symbiote always had the dot.
Okay.
Whereas the black suit without symbiote did not, because he still had web shooters in the wrist. And that costume was designed for him by Black Cat. She was the one that made that suit.
Right.
With her assertion that it was just sexier than the red and blue long johns.
Right.
And it took him a long time to get over the PTSD, and he finally wore it for 8 seconds, and then he met Venom and was like, fuck this. And then went back to the red and blue. But yeah, that was exactly where it comes from, and you're absolutely right. That is a definitive design difference between the two, you bet.
Yeah. So I was only bringing that up because I know the figure we're getting has black dots. So I couldn't remember if they got that right or not. But on
they definitely did, and I noticed it. Yeah,
they've got the PulseCon exclusive Venom that's supposed to be the animated with the red and the black lines on him to make him look animated. I'm like, I get it. I know what they're trying to do. It's okay, that's a good exclusive. For the people that want it, they can get it. It's not we're going to do an exclusive figure of a character that we've never done. And people have been, or if they did a new Toad that people have been asking for a decade, then I'd be upset. But I'm okay, that's a good exclusive.
Right.
The thing I will say for people who do want it, they put it on the Omega Red body, and he has shoulder pads, and they didn't bother. I get it, they're saving money, yada yada, whatever. But they didn't fill in those holes. And now you're getting a Venom that just has random holes in his shoulders.
Right. It's weird. And I don't want to be that guy, but that's the title of the damn stream, so I want to be that guy. I didn't like the 90s Spider-Man cartoon that much, and I don't know anyone that did.
Oh, would
it was okay.
I gotta go.
I guess I know someone that did. But again, it was an age thing too, because you're quite a bit younger than I am, and you are the right age for that to have really hit. That easily could have been your first introduction to the character. I get that. Yeah, well, there you go. But I feel like in a post-Batman animated series world, that version of the story was a bit weird. However, I loved what they did in trying to mix the mythology into one solid timeline that was condensed. I thought it was really cool. But the animation was too flat for my taste, and some of the designs were a little too stylized for my taste.
Yeah.
But it was a good show.
I
just didn't think it was the...
Yeah, sorry, I realized I have a real bad delay now. I'm sorry. I like where they were trying to go, when they would mix the CGI with the animation, when he was swinging through buildings. It was very proto, but where we ended up in the early 2000s with things like Titan AE and Treasure Planet. They did it beautifully. So they kind of laid the groundwork with it. But when you stack up the Spider-Man animation against the likes of Batman and X-Men, it leaves little to be desired.
Leaves little to be desired, or it leaves a lot to be desired?
I'm being polite.
Okay. Yeah, it's not bad for the era, but again, when you compare it to his contemporaries, it's not nearly as solid. And I feel like if they had not spent the money on the CG and let them do a bit more when it comes to the actual animation, it could have come across much better. I think there was too much time spent on bright colors, which result in flatness. There wasn't a lot of concentration on shadows or anything. And I think that's part of like the detriment for that particular series. It introduced storylines from the comics that most kids by that point could never have known about if they weren't like super fans already. I was a super fan by then. I was in high school, and was very appreciative of what they did with that show. Rez wants to point out that they liked the show, and Jesse also said I liked the cartoon, but it fit in the Sal's age group as well. Fair enough. James says that the PulseCon Venom color is crap. I agree. Bjorn asks, what is your least favorite Spider-Man suit? I have multiple answers to this question, but if I had to pick one, it would be the Captain Universe Spider-Man. Never understood why he got that power. Never understood the storyline.
And the Cosmic, where it's all like white and blue, and he has like a little... Yeah, I don't like that either. I was going to say...
Where it's literally the Captain Universe outfit with a Spider-Man mask on the top. That's all it is, because Captain Universe was a separate character that was his exact costume. And I love that character, and I kind of dig the lore behind it. He was super pure and all this stuff of heart and this and that. It's dumb.
I was going to say, and this is probably... I don't know if it counts or not, but when he was with the Fantastic Four for a little bit, but he was wearing the paper bag on his head.
Yeah. That's a good one.
So,
but I like that one because it was like the most Spider-Man costume ever Spider-Man.
Right.
Because this is a guy who was always broke, always was having stupid ass problems, and then he gets to join the Fantastic Four finally, which was something he wanted to do since like issue 2. And he has to wear like a hand-me-down uniform and a paper bag. Like that would only happen to Spider-Man. So the aesthetic, yeah, it's kind of bunk, but in terms of lore, it's pretty spot on, dude.
Sorry,
and he's muted because work. Yeah, I get
it. Weirdly, like my favorite, I shouldn't say it's my favorite, but it's definitely up there, is the Armor Spider-Man, the black and silver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one from like early 90s era.
Right. He was in like one comic book issue and in like 30 seconds of like the animated series.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
But I had that as a kid, the Toy Biz toy version, and he came with like a spiderweb shield and stuff. Like for some reason, it was super cool to me. I don't know why. So I have like this really big soft spot for it. So when I saw it announced for Legends a couple weeks ago, I got really excited, and then I started looking at it, and I'm like, okay, technically it's faithful, but I have the image of the toy. Jesus Christ, dude. I know he wants his curly fries, but he needs to calm down. The image of the Toy Biz one is so ingrained in my head that when I see it, I'm like, sure. Yeah, that's not what I want. But I know that's the only version of that we're ever going to get. They're not going to do a new version of that.
Well, like, I remember, because, again, I was in high school at the time. I was an aspiring comic book artist, which, spoilers, I sucked. But I wrote this comic book where a character that I created with a buddy got entangled with Spidey and the symbiotes, and all this stuff happened, and Spider-Man just got wrecked. Like, wrecked. And they went to Reed Richards, and they said, why don't you just put him in the the armor costume. He's like, that's a light armor piece. It's just meant to be marginally more effective versus an enemy than his spandex. This is not going to help. He has severe damage. We have to do something bigger. So it was somewhere between that armored version and then like War Machine was somewhere in the middle. And like his webs could do like, they could have like, you had fire webs, you had what we called plasma webs, which were like a synthetic offshoot of like the symbiote, so they could take different shapes, ice webs, electric webs, and all this shit. And it was a very bulky, and it was bulky because it was like really slapped together. Like he didn't have time to iterate on the design; it just had to work. So it was very bulky and very reminiscent of like the Mark I Iron Man suit, but with a Spider-Man twist to it and some like awkward antennas and shit. And I designed that in the comic book to just kind of be like if you wanted to put Spider-Man in this like walking, ICU, this is what he would be in and still be able to be Spider-Man on some level, but it would truncate his movement. So there was trade-offs. So in my own headcanon that I literally created from scratch, I always kind of felt that the Spidey armor that was in the comic was like kind of lame and a cop-out when compared to like if you really put him in a scenario where he actually needed to have armor, what would actually need to happen. So I have a distaste for that design only because I thought I could do better. And spoilers, I don't really think it was that much better. But I just at the time was like really married to it. So every time someone brings up that suit, I think of the one I created, which obviously never saw the light of day. That comic that I drew is still floating around somewhere in my file cabinets somewhere, and it will never be released because the drawings suck. The writing was okay, but the artwork was horrendously flat and horrendously bad, which is why I don't do comics today. But I understand why people would be drawn to that particular suit. I think it was a good design. I just, at the time, had a lot of distaste from it. And Gaming Toy Boy says, Spider-Man is my little boy's first 2 words. That's awesome, man. That's really cool. Joneser! Okay. He hates all the alternative costumes. Motu Joneser, by the way, guys, if you like Motu, or comic books, or music at all, you need to subscribe to that channel right the fuck now. His reviews of Motu Origins figures with his little boy are some of the best reviews I've ever seen because they come from a true fandom standpoint. And there's a real distinct push for some production value. He's really trying to put forth his best foot, but it's so sincere and genuine. Dude, you gotta go to that channel. Like, it's just a lot of fun, and it makes my heart 3 sizes bigger. Motu, Joneser, man, great channel, great guy. Love you to death, brother. Thanks for being here so much. Jim Largo is talking about he hates the Spidey as Iron Man Jr. crap, not my Peter Parker. I agree with that, but on the same token, in an MCU, in a Marvel Cinematic Universe, it makes sense. So I was like, in my heart of hearts, I think, okay, they nailed the homemade Spider-Man outfit that he had, and they kind of retroactively justified the coolest aspects of the Spider-Man suit that we came to love as kids, made it canon that those eyes can actually move and express emotion without it being weird. They took it a little too far with like the voice in the head Jarvis shit and some of the added features of the suit that I did not enjoy. But I think in its heart of hearts, they were in the right place with it. I think they took it too far. So I think that when you consider the context, I wouldn't say it's a complete sham, but it's certainly something that bothered me a little in certain places, personally, as a big Spidey fan, personally. Rez says, I also have the DVD's original Spider-Man cartoon as well. Love that one, is why people prefer that one. Yeah, I'm a big mark for the 81 Spider-Man, honestly. Before Amazing Friends, but after the 60s one. Like, that to me is the best one. Amazing Friends was great, and I have that DVD, and I love it. Gaming Toy Boy says, gotta go. It's 3 a.m. Hopefully catch you next time. No worries. Thank you for being here, even if you've already left. Jesse says, I didn't read the comics, but I remember the suit because it was necessary power-up in an SNES Spider-Man game, made it beatable. Yep, that's the thing. He said it twice. So I said it twice. Rez says, I don't know if I have those DVDs, so I need to check. Fair enough. If I missed anybody, I'm really sorry. I'm not trying to do that. Bjorn Orgerson asks, what are my thoughts on Batman Beyond? Try not to think of it. It was a fine show for what it was. I like the idea of it, and I like the idea that it was a direct offshoot of the animated series in many ways. Never got into it, but I don't begrudge it or poo-poo it because of the fact that it wasn't the right time for me. By that point, I was full on into doing music and Zooming girls and all that stuff, and it was just I just didn't have time or the predilection to watch it. So that's why I think about it. So Rez says Batman Beyond the show wasn't nearly as good as the movie that came out of it. I don't know. Haven't seen them. Haven't seen the movie. I've saw like 2 episodes of Batman Beyond, and I had friends that were really into it, and it just wasn't something that was in my radar at the time. Ted Millich asks if I watched Pirates of the Black Water back in the early 90s, probably last cartoon I got to when I was younger. No, I did not watch it. I've heard of it, did not watch it. Return of the Joker. Yeah, I remember that. Give me, guys, a few seconds. I've got to pee. I've been drinking water and beer a lot. I got to pee again. I'm going to give you some music. I'll be right back. Thanks for your patience, folks. I am back, and appreciate that. So, Ted Millich holding the line, asking how everyone's chat is tonight. I see you. I love you. Thank you. George put grandpa to bed for free time. Sweet, man. I'm glad that man's getting rest. Brendan Haley, by the way, love you, mate. Good to see you. Says this would be a great discussion, collaborating with Clobbering Time's YouTube channel, learning a lot about comic culture through his stuff. Yeah, he and I chewed a lot of the same dirt in terms of comics, although his perspective is very different, having run a store and having to be much more of a subject matter expert than I'll ever be. I would love to talk to him sometime. I don't know if that'll ever happen, to be honest. He's kind of in his own space. No shade to the guy. I love him to death. But he's certainly welcome on the channel at any time. So if by some chance he happens to see this, bro, you can come on anytime. We'll talk comic books all day long. Or all night long. All night long. Gigi says, I'm distracted by Godzilla. Looks like a Gary Mod creation. Not wrong. Not wrong. Jim Margaret says all the Bruce Timm era cartoons were good. It's too bad new 52 style came over from DC anime movies. I agree. There are some exceptions to that, but you're not wrong. Rez with the big bomb. What's your favorite TMNT thing ever? Show or movie? Well, there's other TMNT things besides shows and movies. So I originally got into TMNT through the initial miniseries cartoon. That's what caught my eye. And I got into the figures and then the main series, and then I found out about the comic book. And First Publishing did multiple digests of the early comics and like highlights from the series. And honestly, it's the comic book form, that initial run with Eastman and Laird. Not just the first few, but like the stories they were telling with the Triceratons and like the Krang aliens and all that stuff. I was a huge fan of that stuff. The comic books by far are my favorite TMNT, even though the cartoon got me into it. Brenda says, taking a break from writing my partner's resume, so much thinking. Fair. Been watching his Star Trek reviews for Clobber and Jones. Okay. Bjorn says, if Indiana Jones were a cartoon, would I want it to be CGI or 2D? Depends upon the style, to be honest. If they did the work, like let's say they knew for a fact they were rebooting the Indiana Jones franchise, and they had a really kick-ass casting for Indiana Jones, right? So in my head, the CGI or 2D design, whichever route they went, would have to ape a nice hybrid between Harrison Ford and that new actor. Okay? The idea being that you're melding the two mythologies, because I do feel like that's a character like James Bond that should live on. And I think it's possible. In a world where Solo wasn't the worst thing in the world, it tells me there are people out there that can act as those characters. I would prefer a 2D animation, because that's just a personal thing. But I can see some CG working pretty well, as long as they don't go super stylized like Clone Wars, even though I love Clone Wars. That's my answer to that. Tid Millage says, my favorite is Swimming Donatello. Fair enough. It was a good figure. I had it. Love the original TMNT comic, so raw and gritty. Hard agree, sir. Hard agree. TMNT black and white original comic, great storytelling. Agreed. Brenda Haley worked in Big W in late 80s, first job at Walmart, or similar to Walmart, I guess. Remember the first TMNT toy line arriving and so wanting to spend my salt pay packet on them, regret not doing it now. I had a ton of TMNT toys, and I was, by that point, into high school and stuff. And it was something where I was into the characters, so I just did it. I didn't care. Jim Largo has a good idea, as usual. Indiana Jones cartoon and Fleischman Superman style. I'd watch it. And both Brendan and Bjorn coming in with the absolutely on that. 100% agree. 100% agree. Cheers. Yeah, I'm a big mark for TMNT, but like, it's as a collector for both nostalgia and different things that I like. Like, I love the cartoon style. I love the original Playmates toy style. I love the comic style. It's hard for me to decide where I want to go. But I gotta say, and I've said this in other places, I might even said it yesterday on the live stream, the recent reissues of the Playmates vintage style, which are like retailing for $12, $13 US, that might be the place to go. If I can find a set of 4 in one place and just get them, done. And then I'll cherry pick through the line and get the other characters that I want. Because those look great, and they're very evocative of a certain time period in my life. I do not need or want the entire line. I would want to cherry pick characters, and I would certainly want to see some reissues of playsets or updates to playsets. They come out with the sewer playset and the Technodrome. I'm in, like Flynn. I would get those in a heartbeat. And again, certain figures. It would have to be like characters directly related to the comic line or the show that I liked. But I wouldn't be getting these rando fucking figures that they tend to put out, for sure. Ted Millen saw 3 of them, 3 out of 4 the other day. I've seen 3 out of the 4 online at the right price, but I would have to see all 4 of them in one place and just get them. I don't want to have to search to track these down. I really don't. These should be easily gettable. Bjorn says, I like the original cartoon. Early 2000 TMNT has good style. I agree with that. There was a full-length movie they put out called Turtles Ultimate or something like that, where it was that version, the early 2000 version of TMNT versus the cartoon style. And spoilers, they went to Turtles Prime, and they also met the comic book versions in black and white of those characters. That's the definitive Turtles animated anything, as far as I'm concerned. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. It's really good. It's a minor spoiler that I just gave you, but Turtles Forever. Thank you very much, Rez. You're the best. They are doing the Turtle Van. Well, the old Turtle Van was kind of shitty, so they better update that shit. We always thought the Splinter practicing his cage is the funniest thing. Agreed. Good. Hang on. Sorry. Brandon says, Granted, Jim, are you questioning distribution of TMNT? Surely not. It will be as great as Motu. Yeah, I see what you're doing. Jim Logan says, Bruce Timmons said in an interview that Batman, Oh, yeah, absolutely. Huge influence from Fleischer. Without question. Jesse, a.k.a. Epic Badger, says, anyone remember the Pizza Hut TMNT party deals? I do. At the same time, Pizza Hut also had Land Before Time parties. I also remember the TMNT 2, the arcade game for NES, which was a port of course, the arcade game. The back page of the manual for that game had a coupon for a free personal pizza. Remember that shit. I also remember the Coming Out of Their Shells tour. I had that cassette. I still have it somewhere in storage. I still have that cassette. And you can count on us. Yeah, it was cheesy as shit. Rez says Turtles Forever, even though it was just a two-parter for the show, was really fun. Yeah, seeing it in like a long format was really cool. And just the fact they even like got the balls to do it was great. And I feel like the only thing since then, Turtles driven, in terms of entertainment that's really gotten under my skin in a positive way, is Batman versus the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, both the comic and the DC animated film. Really, really good stuff. Really fun, captures the spirit of all the characters perfectly. And if you haven't seen them, just go check them out. It's really good stuff, for sure. I would totally support a toy line based upon those characters, the way they're depicted in that film and comic. Ted Miller had a puppet of Littlefoot, and I think it was from Pizza Hut. Yep, they did that. They absolutely did that. Bjorn says, what other property would you like to see crossover TMNT? That's a good one. X-Men, actually. X-Men. Mutants versus Mutants, I think would be really cool. It would be interesting to see like Spider-Man and Deadpool with the Ninja Turtles, because the Turtles can make a lot of jokes about how their costumes are really similar for no apparent reason. Deadpool can make all kinds of fourth wall jokes. Deadpool's a mutant, Spider-Man a wisecrack, so the Turtles, it would be just bedlam. I think it would be great. So either the X-Men or Deadpool and Spider-Man at the same time. I think it would be perfect. Jim Logan asks, what do y'all think about the TMNT crossover Power Rangers? Weird or cool? I think it makes perfect sense. I read the comic books of it, because I have an Amazon thing where I can read comics almost unlimited. And the comics, read the comics, because the comic book storyline is actually pretty fucking good. I didn't think I would like it. I actually loved it. It was a great story, well written, made sense, great fun, really cool stuff. Have I ever watched the 03 series? I watched it a little bit when it was coming out, but this was coming to a point where I was like very much against having cable TV. So I only watched it for like a couple months, and it was fine. It was fine. It wasn't bad at all. Ted Millich, of course, coming in with the obvious answer, but a very good answer with Daredevil. I think that would be cool, that they would have like this storyline that would be like, oh, by the way, oh shit, our origins are linked. That would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool. Bjorn says there was an episode of Power Rangers Lost in Space had turtles in it. I don't know about that. The 03 series on Paramount Plus now? Well, I just happen to have Paramount Plus. I'll check it out. Seriously. And I agree with Jesse that saying to Ted that would make for a great mini comic. I think that would be great. I think it could be a nice mini series, to be honest. Like a 6-series mini series where they just kind of, and you could like have like this whole thing where like we are called the foot, we are called the hand, like, and then have like Shredder going, is no one seeing what's happening here? This is weird. Is this weird for anybody? Craig's like, oh, this is very weird. Oh, you know, it's kind of hilarious to do. There's a lot of potential in that for sure. Also, I want to give a big shout out to everybody in chat for not asking if my shirt is related to the video game Doom, because it's not. Thank you. People always ask me that when I wear this shirt, and I'm so glad that you didn't ask. So, love you. Love you very much. This is an anti-fascism shirt, which I wore on purpose, which is shorthand for saying I needed to change my shirt so it wasn't something I've worn on a stream in the last week. Was that too revealing? Probably was. So I asked my patrons, because yes, I do have a Patreon. People like don't realize that. Like I advertise it in every video, but I guess everyone clicks off before the end of the video, apparently. Or they don't read the descriptions. But I do have a Patreon, and it's the wrong logo for the game. You're right, James. Absolutely. Thanks, Jesse. I love you, brother, but you can take a screenshot of that at your leisure. But I'm going to ask you guys the same question that I asked my patrons, which is, if you've seen my videos, is there anything that I haven't talked about, hinted at talking about, that you'd like my opinion on, or something you want me to expand upon? Because I have some planned videos that are coming. I know where the content is going for my head, but I've always been pretty shit at kind of gauging what the viewers were kind of, what they're expecting. So sometimes I like to get a gut punch and realize what you think might be coming next, because it may inform, and I can always come back around to my ideas, because I don't want to jump the shark, for lack of a better term. Right. So if there's anything that you want me to talk about, now's a really good time to bend my ear. Jim Largo says Netflix Daredevil's pretty good because it's been better, screwed up the Defenders tie-in. I agree. I think overall, really good. Could have been a hell of a lot worse, though. So in context of what they had, pretty good. Brendan Haley says, I talked to my army son about your Warlord Skeletor shirt the other night. He is now searching for one as it ticks all his interests. Oh, well, I can fix that right the fuck now. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. That is where you want to go. If you want that Warlord shirt, that is who made it. That's who prints it. Done. It's my buddy Bruce. That's where you want to go. WarlordClothing.com. That's where your son or anyone that wants that shirt can get it. Rez, you're a troll, and I love you. You know my opinion on Steel Series. I'm not retreading it here. Ted says Luke Cage is too good along with the Punisher, but didn't care for the others. Fair enough. And whoops. And Netflix Daredevil is a Punisher, so love that. Fair enough. Ways to display in small spaces prior to your move. Well, here's the spoiler for that video. I don't display any figures with the exception of He-Man and Skeletor. They're right next to me. They're right here on my PC speaker. The only place they can fit. Everything else I own is in those bins or tucked away in some box somewhere. I really don't have the space to properly display my figures, because when I put them back here, when I do like work meetings, they might start poking through, and I don't necessarily want to show them off to my clients and stuff like that. Oh, no worries, Brendan. All you had to do was ask, man. WarlordClothing.com. They're amazing. Bjorn would like to hear my opinion of Marauders figures. I am vaguely familiar with the Marauders figures. I know they're like kind of an offshoot of like not an offshoot, but kind of like an answer to like a G.I. Joe line or an Action Force kind of a thing. What I've seen, I think, are pretty cool, but I haven't delved into them at all. And because it does, I'm kind of like Ted in the sense that like there's a lot of them, and I'm like, I don't have any bone in that fight, so I'm just like with it. Ozzy Rule says, did I just spend 6 hours watching Old Headbangers Ball episode and just got on? Yes, I did. There you go. It's a good thing. I'm curious which episodes you watched. I have some of my favorites. I have some I still have on videotapes. I'm curious what you saw, Ozzy. Good to see you. Jim Largo says, once you get into your new setup, it would be cool if you could showcase and third-party figure accessories display sets that you find in it. So like by third-party figure accessories, so you're talking about like off-brand stuff, or are we talking about reproductions or a little bit of both? There's certainly some third-party stuff that I'm into. I don't have any at this point. I don't know. I don't know that I necessarily have anything that's on like my mind with that stuff yet. Because when it comes to third-party, what I think of is a lot of the 3 3/4 inch scale stuff that's out there. And I only have one 3 3/4 inch scale figure outside of the Superpowers collection. And I'm not going to put Superman in a fucking Black Hawk helicopter. You know what I mean? There's some other cool stuff that's out there, like the 6-inch, like that thing that Tony has, the remote control tank or whatever you got, the truck or whatever it is, for 6-inch figures. Like I would get something like that. But I would need to find a pretty reliable source for that kind of stuff in the right scale for me to start buying that kind of stuff. Certain kinds of dioramas, things like that. So there's certainly things that I want to look after, and there's certainly me building dioramas is going to be a thing that starts to happen. So look for that when I get into the new place, because I plan to use the upcoming side table as like a work desk in addition to display to make some diorama stuff I have in my head. I've been talking to the craftsman about some ideas that I have with regards to making modular landscapes where you have like miniature trees and rocks and like tufts of dirt and like little mounds that you can move around as a unit to create bigger spaces, so you're not always moving like just loose moss, fake moss around, to try and make some kind of a modular diorama type of a thing that's going to work for military and certain other types of figures. So it's on my mind for sure. We'll figure it out. Brendan Haley says, time to get rid of your kitchen and just display toys. Eating out for every meal is healthy, right? Well, here's the thing, man. Even if I got rid of the kitchen, I have a kitchenette in here. I don't even have an oven. I have an air fryer. Like, there's so little space I would recoup if I just demolished that little kitchen in a property I don't own. So, yeah. James Sullivan says, Marauders are also most a rabbit hole. Fair. Jim Largo says a little bit of both. Fan made a random finds appearance. I'm definitely interested for sure. I'm always open to suggestions with that stuff too, because I can't keep up with a lot of this shit. James Sullivan says, I did see it, but I'm downsizing. Okay. Brent says, don't need another rabbit hole. Currently have Wilma Deering from Buck Rogers on my balcony sitting in peroxide, and only the Starfighter at least to close that line. Brandon, please tell me you did not get the Wilma Deering bust augmentation set. But if you did, I won't judge you. I don't blame you. Tits are great. Bjorn says, can't wait to see what Graham does about his modular display. I can't wait to see what I do about it either. It might be a complete shit show, to be honest with you. It might turn into a whole lot ado about nothing. It might be just big piles of milliput with twigs sticking out of it that goes nowhere. I don't know. I am no expert in this stuff at all, guys. I'm only working off the shoulders of guys like Dave from Toy Polloi and the Craftsman and a few other people in those spaces where I just understand like techniques and materials one would use to try and do something next level. Because when I asked Craftsman, when I asked him about it, he was like, I've never thought about doing that. I think it's a really cool idea. Let me know if I can help. But he's like, my brain doesn't work that way. But I can see where you got that inspiration from. And if you come up with something, please let me know. I'd love to see it. So I'm kind of in the weeds. I'm kind of on my own here. Dave from Toy Pool is entering a very busy period of video creation on his own. So he doesn't have a lot of time to invest. Like I had talked about possibly sending him my Brainiac, and he's just like, dude, I just don't have time. So I respect that. So I am probably going to be trying to fix my own Brainiac, which is very scary. Very high probability I'm going to split that figure in half with the drill. Not even going to bullshit. That's probably what's going to happen. But I'll make a video about it so you can see. I don't know what's going to happen. James Halpern said, just by building my first AR, you have to go do it and then fix it again and again. Yeah, true. When it comes to like the diorama stuff, like I'm not overly worried because it is something you can kind of tool with until you're happy. But in the case of fixing like a toy like Brainiac, I'm like, I'm very scared. Very scared. But the techniques are tried and true. They're proven. I'm just going to do it, and it's fine. Bjorn says, I've been kicking around some ideas about modular display ideas. Got to figure out exactly what you want out of it. Well, that's the thing. I don't even know what I really want out of it yet either. And I'm only going to know by doing it myself. You know? And then once I have that done, the next question will become, well, what can I do next? So, like, sometimes I'm going to want it to stand in for Motu. Sometimes I'm going to want it to stand in for Marvel Legends. Sometimes both. I don't know yet. I don't know, to be perfectly honest with you. It all boils down to the space that I'm displaying them in. You know, I want this to be universal but adaptable. And I know what I'm thinking in my head. But how modular I can actually make that, that is the real question that I have yet to answer. And until I really start tooling with materials, shit, dude, I don't know. Honestly, don't know. Brenda Haley says, every time I get a mask vehicle, I pray it all works and I don't have to crack it open to restore. So many moving bits without a plan to follow in case of an explosion. Dude, this is part of why I haven't gotten back into the mask line. Bjorn says, general non-descriptive environment, basically. To a certain degree, yeah. To a certain degree, sure. But it's kind of like the best description I can give you would be like kind of the generic background that you saw in a lot of like Godzilla films for the fights, where you had like a mountainside and some trees and dirt and all this stuff. And it was very nondescript. You could tell it was like the Japanese countryside kind of a thing. And somewhere between that and like a cityscape diorama that you'd see. So I want to be able to depict wide open spaces, cityscapes, and combinations thereof. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to do that because there's going to be some forced perspective in there. And some things that you can achieve depending upon the scale of the toys you want to display. Because a tree that works perfectly well for a 6-inch figure, and it's like a smaller tree, if you have a smaller scale Godzilla, could also work in tandem with that as well. Or if you have a larger scale Godzilla like the one on top of my fridge, it could be like, oh, look, broccoli, depending upon how you build it. So it's one of those things. James Salzberg broke 3 Brainiacs back in the day. Thanks for the vote of confidence, man. Jim Largo says, I'll put on the thinking cap, have some 112 scale display stuff for sci-fi, but the few military outdoor display up I've seen crazy expensive from third-party companies in China. Yes. Agreed. Ozzy says, episode so Temple Pilots Acoustic 1992 and Halloween 1993. And our archives has quite a few episodes. Yes, I have seen that as well. I have a couple favorites. The Devin Townsend with Steve Vai episode is quite nice because Dev is just being weird. I rather enjoyed the Spinal Tap episode where they were just promoting their new album, Break Like the Wind. for a while, and they had a lot of sight gags with like this long box for the CD and stuff, and there was a bunch of stuff on that show. It was really good and probably undersold, to be honest. James says, to be fair, they're on clearance at KB. Yeah, because they always broke in the goddamn package, which my original did that, and I'm still not sure if this current one did or not. He's broke like right at the... So if you look at the figure, there's a peg that runs from his shoulder into his arm. You probably know this. In this case, that peg is severed perfectly, right down the middle, which makes for a very doable repair. I've got solid places in both sides to fix. So what I'm thinking I will do is put plastic weld around the inside of the shoulder and the inside of the arm to fuse everything together and keep it solid. And then using a drill out like a Lego piece sized hole on both sides, stick it into the shoulder, glue that in hardcore with a plastic welder, what have you, and then put the arm into the other side and use that for the articulation. That's probably what I'm going to do. But I'm not certain. Bjorn says magnets might be the key. I've thought about that, but no. I don't want to use magnets. But I understand why they're useful. Jim Largo says, Infinity Equation Instagram Discord occasionally has some display and prop makers doing great work. Great to know. Point out the best ones to me and send them along, sir. Ozzy says, yeah, the Vine Spinal Tap one's a classic. Absolutely. And James confirmed right shoulder. There it is. Because his action arm, whichever one that is, it's working fine. It's just the, hey, my arm can go up and down. Like, that's the one that's the problem. So it's probably his left arm, actually. You use a tiny screw and thread tape. Yeah. I can see that working. But when I talked to Dave about it, he was like, dude, just do the Lego fix. The only problem I have with that is that, like, the shoulder, like the arm itself, is kind of thin by comparison. So what I would probably have to do is shave down the edge of that Lego piece a little bit, right? And I don't know if it makes more sense to... It just depends upon which end ends up being longer, okay? And if I have like this tiny piece in the arm, it would make more sense to glue that in, then take the longer piece and just shove it into that hole and let it just articulate that way, right? But until I actually get the tools out, AKA get the actual tools to do this properly, I'm not going to know. Because no one has a Brainiac repair of that level anywhere. That's why I approached Dave in the first place, because he's the master. And he just doesn't have the time. He wants to help, and he's a good guy. We're friends. But if he doesn't have time, the man doesn't have time. And it's like, well, I should just do it. Because he told me multiple times, like, dude, just try the Lego thing. That's what I would probably do. It's worth trying. James says, I have some of those Technic pieces. I'll include the Amigos. Dude. Perfect. Thank you. And also, dude, like, I don't know what you're doing, but thanks, man. You're the best. Absolute best. So we've been going for 2 hours and 15 minutes at this point. I'm going to give you guys a few more minutes of my time, and then I'm out. It's been a long day for me. I just wanted to try and bring some of you together and give you guys a place to chill and just hang out. James, non-action arm. Thought that could have sworn the right arm is the one you squeeze. I could be wrong. Because again, I haven't since I got that figure, he went right into the bin. And I haven't touched him. I'm scared to break him more. So I don't know for sure. Ozzy, I've had an Instagram account for like 4 or 5 years. So yeah, I definitely have it. It's just Grindhead Jim, dude. It's James Zelper said. He probably didn't get a chance to finish his sentence. It's been 20 years. Yeah, I get that, man. I'm not criticizing you, bro. I honestly don't know either. So, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Well, since I'm not monetized on YouTube, and I have nothing to lose with regard to that. And people are like, what do you mean you're not monetized on YouTube? I'm not. I was monetized during the old model, and they took it away from me. And I've been fighting to get it back. And unless I see some insanely large kind of uptick in views, which is also probably not going to happen, it's probably never going to come back, which is fine. Like, I own that. I absolutely own that, which is, again, fine. What I'm thinking that I am going to do is close the show with a song that I listened to today. And I want to put it out to certain folks in the toy collecting community that think that corporations are worth defending when compared to the collectors and the people that love those properties clearly more than their corporate masters. So I'm just trying to find it. That's why I'm speaking so long and protracted. I found it. So I am going to play this song. Jim Largos, a good food of thought for tonight. Thank you, sir. Bjorn reiterated that I'll be a news patron this weekend. Dude, that's going to be a blast. Can't wait to see it. It is not Eat the Rich Motorhead. This is a song called Antagonized by Malevolent Creations. We'll go. Oh, I absolutely will, Jim. I will definitely tell Sal that we appreciate him stopping by tonight. Absolutely. I appreciate him stopping by. It was very selfless of him to just hop in, work notwithstanding, and I was very happy to see him. But I'm going to go ahead and go out on this, and I wish you guys an amazing evening. Thank you for being here. Everyone that's been here, past and present, and future, I appreciate you. Giving me a platform to just speak my bullshit and enjoy the company of some amazing people. I love all of you very much. So I'm going to leave you with this, and I hope you have an amazing fucking day. We'll see you soon. Cheers.